So you're playing Genshin, you do a 10 pull, and while you don't get a 5-star, you do get 4-star Sethos. Now, what do you get with Sethos? Besides a character who I think is the only character in Genshin that has a kit revolving around a fluctuation in energy. Well, Sethos is a bow-wielding Electro user, and in this video, we're going to look at how to use Sethos in a Quicken Aggravate team and a Quick Bloom team. Now, here is where I would normally do a sponsor. I'm not doing a sponsor. My sponsor is me. Follow me, subscribe, comment, all of that wonderful stuff so you can see more of me. I am a disease. I guess I'm a virus. By the way, last night we went to an auto concert. Phenomenal. 10 out of 10. My arm is sore from, swinging the light stick all night. It's great. 10 out of 10. Recommend. Highly recommend. Go auto. So real quick, we're going to look at his kit and explain it very, very fast. Sethos has two versions of his charged attack. The first one is going to be a normal one where it's just going to shoot a normal electro arrow. The second one is going to have this bigger ring. You have to wait for it to slowly close in. Whenever you have it, it is going to do what is called a shadow piercing shot, which is going to fire through multiple enemies, hitting every enemy in its path. It is also going to get increased damage as well. His skill is rather simple. You're going to use his skill. He's going to move back, dealing an instance of electro damage, giving him energy if he causes an electro reaction. Now we get into his burst, as well as the two possible ways to build Sethos. One is going to be using his burst as much as possible. Whenever you do his burst, you are going to get electro conversion into his normal attacks. You do not get to use charge attacks anymore. You're just going to be spamming electro normal attacks during his burst. That's it. So that would be building him to do burst damage. The other way is to build into his shadow piercing shots, which are going to use the energy that would otherwise go to his burst to decrease the charge time on his shadow piercing shots. So as you can see, if we have energy onto his ulti, onto his burst, then by using his shadow piercing shots, it is going to very quickly charge it, taking some of that energy away for you to just do shadow piercing shots over and over and over and over again. Now, one of his passes does give an increase in the attack to the shadow piercing shots based up to like 4 of them if you do them fast enough. So after 4, you will kind of have to swap him off the field and go back through your rotation. So those are the two ways to kind of build him, either to do shadow piercing shot damage or do electro damage through his burst or his ulti. Now we're going to talk about specifically using him in a Quicken Aggravate team. That is the team that we currently have been using. This is going to be Sethos, Nahida, Sheilinen instead of Kazuha. I like Sheilinen here to have a healer, and then Fischl. Now, because of how Quicken and Aggravate work, we have to shred the resistances before we introduce the Dendro. It's much harder to swirl or crystallize off of an enemy that has the Quicken aura on them. We want to go ahead and get that done before we use Nahida. Now this is also going to work because we want to make sure that we're using his skill after we have the Dendro on the enemy, so that way he can get extra energy through his skill if he causes the reaction. So we're going to start by summoning Oz, getting Electro on the enemy, going through Sheilinen, doing her whole kit, going into Nahida, marking them with her E, then using her ulti if it's available, going into Sethos, shadow piercing shot, shadow piercing shot, shadow piercing shot, shadow piercing shot, right? Fischl is going to help supplement energy over to Sethos, which my Sethos has 0% energy recharge in his substats, so he needs all the help he can get right now. Having this is going to be good because Fischl is going to be doing a ton of damage. Nahida is going to be doing a ton of damage with the reapplication of the skill of the E through how her kit works with the marks. And Sethos is going to be getting energy from Fischl. He's still going to be able to cause reactions with his skill, with his E, so that way we can still get the extra energy. And then we can go through his shadow piercing shots. Yes, you can use the burst in this team as well. It's going to be much harder to kind of get the aggravate reactions. Whereas with a shadow piercing shot, I believe you can get because of how the internal cooldown works, I think that you can get one every second shadow piercing shot. You can get an aggravate reaction. And then Nahida is still going to have a lot of damage through reapplication of her skill. And Oz will still be able to get, of course, aggravate reactions as well. Now, the exact build that we would be using on Sethos, or I guess the artifacts, for shadow piercing shots, you're going to be using 4-piece Wanderer's Troop or like Gilded Dreams, right? Aggravate and Spread are going to be reactions that are going to work off of Elemental Mastery, where we want to build a ton of Elemental Mastery into Sethos and Fischl here, so that way we can get a lot of damage through these Aggravate and Spread reactions with Nahida. Now, Nahida's burst is also going to kind of give an EM share over to where he's going to bump it up even more, allowing them to do even more damage on those reactions. Now, if you're going to be running him through like burst damage, then you're probably going to be running either Gilded or Thundering Fury You're not going to be using Wanderer's Troop because Wanderer's Troop gives a buff to the charged attack damage, not through his ulti, right? Because once you use his burst, you cannot use charge attacks any longer until the burst ends. So we're going to be getting away from Wanderer's Troop, and we're going to be going to like Thundering Fury or Gilded in this instance. Now, the other way that you can run him is going to be in what is called a Quick Bloom team, where we're going to have a little bit of hydro, a slower applicator of hydro in this team to allow every now and then some blooms to be created. So essentially the correct way to do it would be to get a Quicken and Aggravate on the first shadow piercing shot, hit some blooms on the second shot to cause hyper bloom, and then go back into getting an Aggravate reaction on the third. Now, in my opinion, there is only one true quick bloom enabling person, and that is going to be Farina. So we would take out Fischl and we put in Farina. Especially if you've got Key on Farina, then it's going to make this even better. Again, Shielding over Kazuha because of the healing in this instance, which will work better with the fanfare stacks that are going to come from Farina. Now, at this point, you might also be able to take out Nahida and put in Baiju on like 4-piece instructor set. So that way you have even more healing, but it's not going to be as much danger application as you would get from Nahida. And essentially the way that this team is going to work is that Farina is going to be using her fanfare stacks as well as the EM buffing from Key to give EM over to Sethos and fanfare stacks to Sethos. Shieldin is going to be doing what Shieldin did before, but also giving fanfare stacks. You can also use Nahida with Prototype, right? It's not Prototype Amber. Prototype Amber. Is it Prototype Amber? The Mondstack craftable catalyst that whenever you use your burst, it is going to heal. You can throw that on Nahida if you can still get over 1,000 EM without her signature weapon or like sack frags or something like that. You can do that just to get a little bit more onto the fanfare stacks, but what you still need to make sure that you have 1,000 EM on Nahida. And then of course Nahida's burst is going to be sharing EM. So we have EM sharing from Farina with Key, EM sharing from Nahida with her burst, all over to Sethos. Fanfare stacks going to Sethos. Now, with this team though, you are going to have to be a lot more careful with how you manage Sethos's E, because that's really going to be the main source of his energy, right? We need to make sure that he causes a reaction with E. We need to make sure that to give him the extra energy or have like 120 ER instead of, 0 like my Sethos has. So that way he can use all of his shadow piercing shots without having Fischl there to supplement that energy. So like I said, in this team, we're going to be kind of causing Aggravate, Quicken Aggravate reactions in between Farina's pets hitting the enemy. So they're just going to have Dendro on them. We're going to cause Aggravate reactions, right, dealing increased damage. When the Farina pet hits the enemy, it's going to create blooms. The shadow piercing shots can trigger the hyper blooms as well as hitting the enemy. So if you just kind of line up a couple of blooms, 2 blooms would be the best number. Line up 2 blooms for a shadow piercing shot, you're going to get an instance of electro damage with the Aggravate reaction. You're going to get a reapplication of Nahida's skill. You're going to get 2 hyper blooms in there as well. So you're going to get a ton of instances of damage in this one single attack from Sethos. Again, you do need to make sure that you have a much more energy recharge investment in the substats into him, whereas mine does not, to run this team. It really also kind of dependent on Farina having Key, because your hyper blooms are going to do less damage without that, because you still have to have a ton of EM investment into Sethos for the Aggravate reactions. But then if you don't have him quite the EM that you want, he's only going to be hitting like 10k per hyper bloom. I mean, mine's only hitting 13k, right? So like I need to get more EM on him, even through the Nahida burst and the Farina with Key. Without those 2 things, it wouldn't even be worth trying to run like something like a quick bloom team. Now that is going to be it for this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure you comment, like, subscribe, all the fun stuff. I think I said it earlier in this video. Oh well, I'm going to say it again. Cookie is green hair. I have white hair. Is it white hair? Yeah, it's white hair. I was going to dye it blue for the auto concert. I even did my nails. I don't even know if you can see them. Like, woo, yeah, woo. They're blue and black. I moved them too fast. They're like blue and black, right? For the auto concert, I was going to dye my hair blue. Completely ran out of time. But Cookie is green hair. I have white hair that will be a color soon, and I will see you in the next one. Jeez, it looks so freaking bright. I don't like that. I'm turning it back down. It looked like sun-baked in this. We'll go back down to 50%. There we go.